Our public schools have been taken over by the radical left maniacs. Here is my plan to save American education and restore power to American parents. First, we will cut federal funding for any school or program pushing critical race theory, gender ideology, or other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content onto our children. We're not going to allow it to happen. Next, I will direct the Department of Justice and Education to open civil rights investigations into any school district that has engaged in race-based discrimination. That includes discrimination against Asian Americans. The Marxism being preached in our schools is also totally hostile to Judeo-Christian teachings, and in many ways it's resembling an established new religion. Can't let that happen. For this reason, my administration will aggressively pursue potential violations of the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause of the Constitution. That's very simple. Additionally, on day one, we will begin to find and remove the radical zealots and Marxists who have infiltrated the Federal Department of Education. And that also includes others, and you know who you are, because we're not going to allow anybody to hurt our children. Joe Biden has given these lunatics unchecked power. I will have them fired and escorted from the building, and I will tell Congress that any appropriations bill I sign must reaffirm the president's ability to remove defiant employees from the job. It's all about our children. I will veto the sinister effort to weaponize civics education. We will keep men out of women's sports, and we will create a new credentialing body that will be the gold standard anywhere in the world to certify teachers who embrace patriotic values, support our way of life, and understand that their job is not to indoctrinate children, but very simply to educate them. Finally, I will implement massive funding preferences and favorable treatment for all states and school districts that make the following historic reforms in education. 1, abolish teacher tenure for grades K through 12 so we can remove bad teachers and adopt merit pay to reward good teachers. We want great teachers in our schools. 2, drastically cut the bloated number of school administrators, including the costly, divisive, and unnecessary diversity, equity, and inclusion bureaucracy. 3, adopt a parental bill of rights that includes complete curriculum transparency and a form of universal school choice. And 4, implement the direct election of school principals by the parents. It's all about the parents for their children. More than anyone else, parents know what their children need. If any principal is not getting the job done, the parents should be able to vote to fire them and select someone who will. This will be the ultimate form of local control. Our country has, frankly, never had anything like it, or let's say for at least the last 50 years. As the saying goes, personnel is policy, and at the end of the day, if we have pink-haired communists teaching our kids, we have a major problem. When I'm president, we will put parents back in charge and give them the final say. We will get back to teaching reading, writing, and math, called arithmetic, and we will give our kids the high-quality, pro-American education they deserve. We spend more per pupil than any nation in the world by double. We're going to keep spending the money, but we're now going to get our money's worth. We're at the end of every list on education, and yet we spend the most. We're going to change it around. We may spend the most, but we're going to be tops in education, no matter where you go, anywhere in the world. Thank you very much. For many years, tuition costs at colleges and universities have been exploding, and I mean absolutely exploding. While academics have been obsessed with indoctrinating America's youth, the time has come to reclaim our once great educational institutions from the radical left, and we will do that. Our secret weapon will be the college accreditation system. It's called accreditation for a reason. The accreditors are supposed to ensure that schools are not ripping off students and taxpayers, but they have failed totally. When I return to the White House, I will fire the radical left accreditors that have allowed our colleges to become dominated by Marxist maniacs and lunatics. We will then accept applications for new accreditors who will impose real standards on colleges once again and once and for all. These standards will include defending the American tradition and Western civilization, protecting free speech, eliminating wasteful administrative positions that drive up costs incredibly, removing all Marxist diversity, equity, and inclusion bureaucrats, offering options for accelerated and low-cost degrees, providing meaningful job placement and career services, and implementing college entrance and exit exams to prove that students are actually learning and getting their money's worth. Furthermore, I will direct the Department of Justice to pursue federal civil rights cases against schools that continue to engage in racial discrimination and schools that persist in explicit, unlawful discrimination under the guise of equity will not only have their endowments taxed, but through budget reconciliation, I will advance a measure to have them fined up to the entire amount of their endowment. A portion of the seized funds will then be used as restitution for victims of these illegal and unjust policies, policies that hurt our country so badly. Colleges have gotten hundreds of billions of dollars from hardworking taxpayers, and now we are going to get this anti-American insanity out of our institutions once and for all. We are going to have real education in America. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. My name is Eric Simpkin, and you are watching the Political Badass Podcast. I want to thank you very much for spending some of your Sunday with me to listen to what I have to say. If you've been following this podcast for the last 16 episodes, you'll know that I'm a huge fan and supporter and follower of Stephen K. Bannon. They put Stephen K. Bannon in prison just before the election for 4 months because he is a leader of the MAGA movement. And what does MAGA mean? Make America Great Again. And where is that going to start? It's going to start with our children. In my humble opinion, the American public education system is a catastrophe. It is the biggest problem, the biggest existential threat that we face because they are polluting our children's minds, bodies, and souls with poisonous information that's making them question the entire doctrine of what we call freedom, life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness here in America. And where did that all start? It all started back in 1963. And if you've been following this podcast, you know that I've been talking about this for a very long time. And that is that they came up with a list of communist goals in the United States Congress. You can Google that. It's called the Congressional Record Appendix, page A34 and A35, January 10th of 1963. Congress convened to figure out how we can stop the infiltration of communists into our American public institutions. And most of those communist goals were relating to how they can infiltrate the education system. There's a list of about 45 things here. And when I looked through these goals that they had, I start at number 17 on that list. Get control of the schools. Use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda. Soften the curriculum. Get control of teachers' unions and associations. Put the party line in textbooks. That's the biggest thing I could possibly tell you about the public education system. Get control of the unions, soften the curriculum, and put this stuff into textbooks. And guess what? Now with technology, we don't even have textbook. We have apps where these administrators, these credentialed class of people who are not elected by us, by we the people, are making these decisions, and they're fighting the Trump agenda for his 47th, being the 47th president, and that is to clean up our education system. He knows it. I know it. And if you don't know it, as Stephen K. Bannon would say, break out your number 2 pencil, because we're going to connect all the dots today on this podcast. You're going to know what's going on, and then we're going to take steps on how we're going to fight it, stop it, and turn this train around and get it going in the right direction. The next thing was number 19 on that list. Use student riots to foment public protest against programs or organizations which are under communist attack. What does that mean? Look at our colleges, look at our institutions, look at how much violence there is in our youth. They're normalizing violence as a way to get your way. Okay. And they're teaching these children a very, very scary, dangerous ideology. And we're going to get to that in a few minutes. Okay. The next thing was number 24. 24 says eliminate all laws governing obscenity by calling them censorship and a violation of free speech and free press. That's what they do. They use our Constitution against us. Okay. And what they're doing actually is they're trying to protect themselves under the guise of a state-sponsored religion. And if you listen to what President Trump just said, that's what DEI is. I've been saying it and calling from the rooftops since I figured out what it was about 4.5 years ago. Okay. It is a state-sponsored religion that they seek protection under so they can continue to indoctrinate and sexualize our children. Number 25 was break down the standards of morality by promoting pornography and obscenity in books, magazines, motion pictures, radio, and TV. And I would add on social media, you need to start paying attention to what your kids are doing on social media. I'm going to teach you how to do that by going to samsorbo.com. That's SAMSORBO.com. She is a woman that is teaching parents how to pull your kids, because even though President Trump was elected in a landslide victory, a trifecta where we won the presidency, we won the Senate, we won the House, and then we won the popular vote. That is a full mandate that the American people have spoken and chosen President Trump to be our leader and to insert people into positions of power that control our government, that are going to put America first instead of America last, like we've all been witnessing. Okay. Number 26, present homosexuality, degeneracy, and promiscuity as normal, natural, and healthy. LGBTQIA+, not the community members themselves, but the driving forces behind it. Okay. It was started back in the 80s, back at California University. I'm going to go through that with you when we talk about somebody that I admire greatly that wrote a book that explains a lot of this stuff. Osmer Nomani. You need to get this book. It's called Woke Army. If you read the first 100 pages of this book, you're going to understand why the American education system is being Islamicized, it's being LGBTQIA plusized, and it is being de-Americanized. You're going to follow along with me. Like I said, break out your number 2 pencil and start writing this stuff down and take action, because if you don't, you're going to lose your children to this maniac society that they have been trying to perpetuate upon us. Okay, number 27, infiltrate the churches and replace revealed religion with social religion. That's right, secularize religion without God. In fact, right now, there's a consortium that's trying to bring spirituality back to schools. That's right, the Rockefeller Foundation, all these other big foundations, Bill Gates, George Soros, that's where the money comes from to seed and fund all these programs that you're seeing in our schools, or at least you're hearing about it. Or if your kid's coming home saying, hey, I know I'm a boy, but I really am a girl. They're learning it in the public education system. The only thing that you can do to protect your children right now is to pull your kids until this train is turned around and going in the right direction. I have full confidence in Donald J. Trump. I have full confidence in his pick for the education secretary, Linda McMahon. She is going to turn things around. Voucher programs so you can pull your kids, privately educate them in private school if you want. Really, you need to homeschool your kids. You need to learn how. That's at samsorbo.com, SAMSORBO.com. Number 28. This is a biggie. About 50 years ago, when we eliminated prayer or any phase of religious expression in the schools on the ground that it violates the principle of separation of church and state. Okay, that's in the United States Constitution. Okay, and if you haven't read it, you need to get yourself a pocket copy of it. I read it all the time. Every time I feel like my rights are being infringed upon, this is where I go to verify what my rights are. And I know this. Okay, the separation of church and state was not to stop and take the Bible out of school or any of that stuff. Okay, I know there was different religions, my own included, of the Jewish people. We were complaining, hey, there's too much religion in school. We need to take it out. I would tell you in hindsight, that was a mistake because now what they've done is they are replacing the Judeo-Christian values of the West, our American culture, God, family, and country, the three pillars of the traditional American family. They're replacing it with the state-sponsored religion of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the facts are all here. Break out your pencil and start writing them down so you can protect yourself and protect your children. Number 39, this is big. Okay. Number 39 talks about psychology and psychiatrists dominate the psychiatric profession and use mental health laws as a means of gaining coercive control over those who oppose communist goals. That's right. If you don't fit in, your kid's going to get tapped by some sort of trusted adult. Who do you trust in your schools? I wouldn't trust a single person unless you know them personally. You need to get to that school. You need to go to a school board meeting, listen to the policies, the curriculum that they're passing. It's disgusting. It's got nothing to do with the American cultural values, the values, virtues, and beliefs that we've been passed down to by countless generations before us, and that we hold that obligation to pass it down to our children and the countless future generations of our families. And if we don't stop it now, I can assure you more and more families are going to be broken. I mean, what do you think happens when a kid comes home to their parents and starts believing the stuff that they're being indoctrinated? These children are vulnerable. Never mind the special needs children in our schools. They're the most vulnerable members of our society. And these people, pardon my language, they're mind fucking them. Okay. And what that's going to do, it's going to totally screw your family values. And that's what's happening in families across the country, and especially in blue states like New Jersey, we have a governor like Phil Murphy who's adopted all this stuff and smiles like a horse-toothed jackass while he does it to us, right? That's got to stop. We have a governor election coming up in 2025, and I can assure you, as somebody that's involved in the inside politics in New Jersey, Jack Ciattarelli is not going to be the one that's going to right this ship. I am fully supporting and endorsing Bill Spadea for governor in 2025. He is an America First candidate. He has a huge radio show, a huge platform where he's promoted and brought on so many countless Republican candidates on that show. Thank you, Bill Spadea, for everything you've done to fight the fight. I know there's some people that complain about Bill Spadea. Guess what? Nobody's perfect. Okay. We are not electing personalities. We're electing people that we feel can promote and promulgate the policies that we need to help save our country, our state, our cities, and our families. And for that reason alone, I am fully supporting Bill Spadea as governor. Okay, I know what goes on. Bob Hugin and all these people that run the NJGOP, they all donated to Chris Christie for president of the United States in 2024 against Donald Trump. So anybody that they're propping up to be governor is just part of the same hypocrisy. And that's what Jack Ciattarelli represents to me. The guy wants to give licenses, driver's licenses to illegals. He can't even use the word illegal immigrant. How's it going to stop us from being a sanctuary state? There's too much power above the governor with special interests, and he's involved in a lot of it. That's why he lost the governor race in 2021. We cannot afford to lose. We cannot prop up candidates that are rhinos, Republican in name only. I don't even care what you call it. He's weak, diluted, and a two-time loser. Okay. And he donated to Chris Christie's campaign against Donald Trump. And P.S., I checked every single PAC, political action committee that Donald Trump uses to raise money, and I couldn't find Jack Ciattarelli's name on one single one of those PACs as a donor. What's that tell you about things? Nothing good. We're going to get back to that in a little bit. Okay. Number 40, discredit the family as an institution. Encourage promiscuity and easy divorce. Why do you think Planned Parenthood has such a say in our education system? I can't figure out a reason. I mean, Planned Parenthood wants to murder babies. Now, that's people's choice, and while there's a law that allows for it, that's something you can choose if you have an unexpected pregnancy. Me personally, I am totally for the exemptions, which is rape, incest, and life of the mother. I am also okay because I understand that there needs to be some sort of choices for people. I've always been okay with a 16-week rule. I mean, I wouldn't be okay with it in my own family, but I do understand that I cannot impose my personal values on every single citizen, and I'm not looking to, because I don't aspire to run the office. But the people that are aspiring to run the office have to have our backs. Bill Spadea is also endorsed by the largest pro-life organization in New Jersey. And I think that's huge because they know that he can't implement a zero tolerance for abortion, but they're going to back him because he knows he has the values, virtues, and beliefs as much similar as they can from Judeo-Christian values of the West. And these are the things I'm reading to you. I'm not making this stuff up. Okay, write it down. Write down these things. Have them ingrained in your mind like they are in mine, because I think it's preposterous that we've allowed it to get to this place, but we're here. And speaking of getting to this place, how do we get here? By a total lack of civic and parent engagement in the public education system. And that starts with showing up for a school board meeting. I know that my local school board meeting is Tuesday night coming up. I'm going to go on into them and ask them if they're prepared to start making changes to their curriculum and policy so that they can take advantage of the future windfalls that are going to come when President Trump gives huge financial advantages to school districts who participate in getting rid of DEI and opening up education back to the Judeo-Christian values of the West. That's what I'm all about. I want to get back to the basic reading, writing, arithmetic. We don't need social change shoved down our throats. Our children are being indoctrinated in every single class with radical sex and sexuality ideology. Critical race theory's got to go. Okay, we don't have a systemic problem other than the system that's educating our children, and they all got to go. Okay, you can let your board members know that we are coming for their seats peacefully next election cycle if they're lucky enough to have gotten on and promote their radical agenda. You're all going bye-bye if I got something to do about it. Okay, break out your pencils and write this stuff down. And I need you to go to your local school district, find out when that next school board meeting is, and then you need to go and you need to participate and learn how to have your voice be heard. There's plenty of examples out there on YouTube, on all sorts of social media where you can see what other parents are saying to their school boards to make stuff happen. Okay, number 42. Create the impression that violence and insurrection are legitimate aspects of the American tradition, that students and special interest groups should rise up and use united force to solve economic, political, or social problems. That is the number one technique of communists. What do? They unionize people. They bring small groups of oppressed people, the oppressed versus the oppressor, the weak versus the strong. Strong is bad, weak is good. Unionize those weak people and then overthrow the strong people by the union. That is the number one goal of communists, and that's how it works. That's what you're witnessing in your public schools. It has to stop, and it has to stop now. I'm going to bring us on another video right now. This is a video that came out online by the National Education Association. That's the biggest teachers union in the country, or second biggest one. And they had their convention in Philadelphia back in July. I showed up to protest them with a bullhorn outside, telling them how it is. I'll get to that a little bit later. But let's take a look, because we just elected Donald Trump to select people to run our country. And this is what these unelected bureaucrats have to say about who Donald Trump is putting in for education secretary, and that is Linda McMahon. Take a look.
Top 3 reasons Linda McMahon should not be Secretary of Education. Educators are appalled, but not surprised, that Donald Trump has nominated another grossly unqualified candidate to run the U.S. Department of Education. By Amanda Litvinoff, senior writer. Published, November 20, 2024. When President-elect Donald Trump named Linda McMahon as his nominee for Secretary of Education on Tuesday, the news did not sit well with the nation's public school educators. McMahon is not only unqualified to run the agency, she has spent years pushing policies that would defund and destroy public schools. If this description sounds familiar, it's because McMahon is strikingly similar to Trump's Secretary of Education in his first term, Betsy DeVos. By selecting Linda McMahon, Donald Trump is showing that he could not care less about our students' futures, said NEA President Becky Pringle. Rather than working to strengthen public schools, expand learning opportunities for students, and support educators, McMahon's only mission is to eliminate the Department of Education and take away taxpayer dollars from public schools, where 90% of students, and 95% of students with disabilities, learn, and give them to unaccountable and discriminatory private schools, said Pringle.
Because in the midst of every challenge, during every moment of change or perceived chaos, we will remember who we are. We are the ones who helped to shape the heart of this nation's hopes and dreams. We are the ones who hold steadfast to the belief of the plausibility of the possible. We are the heirs of all who did this work before us. We must keep going. NEA delegates, we can do this work. We must do this work because our students are depending on us to win all the things. NEA, we have to win all the things, all the things, all the things. Keep going, NEA. To preserve our democracy, we must win all the things. Delegates, we won't go back. We will keep going forward because we are the NEA. We are the NEA. We are the NEA. And that's what we do.
In addition, ED enforces rules that protect the rights of students and educators in both pre-K-12 and higher education settings. If Linda McMahon is confirmed as Education Secretary, all of those essential functions are at risk. Here's why. 1. Linda McMahon is not qualified for the position. Like Betsy DeVos, McMahon has no significant background in public schools nor any understanding of what it takes to help every student thrive. She served 1 year on the Connecticut Board of Education after lying about having a degree in education. McMahon spent her career as CEO of WWE, an entertainment company that has been accused of shady business practices and the abusive treatment of employees. 2. She has pledged to push an extremist agenda. McMahon co-founded the America First Policy Institute, an organization formed in 2021 specifically to promote former U.S. President Donald Trump's public policy agenda after he lost the 2020 election to Joe Biden. Her chief goal for education is to promote vouchers, which drain resources from public schools and send taxpayer money to unaccountable private schools that are permitted to discriminate against students and educators. The policies she promotes are aligned with Trump's Project 2025 plan. 3. She will be a rubber stamp for Donald Trump. McMahon is a billionaire who donated tens of millions of dollars to Trump's campaigns over the years. If confirmed as Secretary of Education, McMahon will stand at the ready to carry out the things Trump campaigned on, including removing expanded Title IX protections put in place by the Biden administration, pushing voucher schemes, and even dismantling the Federal Department of Education altogether. NEA President Becky Pringle said parents and educators will not stand by as Trump and Betsy DeVos 2.0 steal resources for our most vulnerable students, increase class sizes, cut job training programs, make higher education more expensive and out of reach for middle-class families, take away special education services for disabled students, and put student civil rights protections at risk. Instead, they will work together to reject the harmful, outlandish, and insulting policies being pushed by the Trump administration, said Pringle. That begins with calling upon the Senate to reject the nomination of Linda McMahon as Secretary of Education.
Sean Spiller is the president of the New Jersey Education Association, and he is running for governor in 2025. Look at what these people want to do. America has spoken and spoken very clearly. We want the policies that Donald J. Trump campaigned upon and was elected upon in a landslide victory of the presidency, of the state, of the Congress, both the House of Representatives and the Senate, and he also won the popular vote in America. Now, here in New Jersey, we do live in a blue state. Okay, but we came within 4.5 points of winning this state for President Trump. And that means next election, we can win it and we can win this governor race. Because really, at the end of the day, what President Trump is going to do with the Department of Education, eventually, yes, it might be dismantled, but for now, it's going to be fixed. They're going to put in mandates that are going to require schools to participate in a way that promotes the fundamentals of American freedoms and not the fundamentals of the state-sponsored religion of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is all that's done is divide us and been uninclusive and excluding people, parents, and all sorts of our population out of the decision-making process. We did not elect Pringle. We didn't elect Spiller for the NEA or the NJEA, yet they are going to combine forces to fight the things that America just spoke proudly for to vote in a set of policies, rules, regulations, and people that are going to fix what's wrong with our country. And I am not going to stand for it. Are you? Are you going to show up at a school board meeting? I mean, I don't see anybody at school board meetings. Here's what I had to say about that. I go to a lot of school board meetings. Where are you, fathers? What are you going to do about it? You going to sit there and let your family get touched by a government? Are you out of your minds? You really need to start paying attention to what's going on, what's being taught to your kid. I mean, if a stranger on the street walked up to your kid and started talking about masturbation, blowjobs, and anal sex, what would you do? Because that's what the teachers are doing. They have the right to teach about all this stuff at whatever age they want. They decide what is age appropriate or not. You don't get to decide. You better get involved. What's the first thing you do? Go to a school board meeting. Okay. All I want to hear about from my friends and people that watch this podcast is how many people went to a school board meeting this week. And if you don't, you're failing yourself. And even worse, you're failing your children. And they're taking the parent out of the equation because they don't need your permission. They don't need to tell you what's going on with your child because they know what's best for your child. They know better than you. That's what they believe. They do believe that they know better than you. Okay. And what Stephen K. Bannon would say about that is this.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
Last week was the New Jersey Education Association convention in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Not only did they greet all the teachers and educators and quote unquote trusted adults to the room with a pair of drag queens so that they can normalize the sexualization of our children, but they also invited and gave a huge platform to terror-tide Islamic group that's penetrated New Jersey schools. Teachers are converted. That's right. They converted to Islam right at the convention. Okay. And they're all getting that to enforce Sharia law. Okay. Which is not the Judeo-Christian values of the West. Okay. And basically what's happening here is unacceptable. They're giving away Qurans. They're teaching teachers under the guise of helping protect Muslim students. What happened there is CAIR, C-A-I-R, the Council of America Islamic Relations. That was started by a person named Haytham Barzan. Okay. And he came to America back in 1985 or 1987. Where did he land? At California University, Berkeley. That's why all this stuff is a hotbed at Berkeley, because at the same time, you had the inventor basically of CRT, which was Kimberly Crenshaw. Okay. She went to Harvard. She's a UCLA law school staff member, and she is a champion of anti-discrimination. Let me tell you something. Their version of anti-discrimination is the most discriminatory propaganda I've ever read in my entire life. It's unacceptable, disgusting, and we're going to watch a video in a few minutes of a woman named Asra Nomani. Okay, she wrote a book called Woke Army. You have to go get it, folks. Okay, if you can't get the time to read this book, you can pay attention to some of the past episodes of my podcast, because this woman knows what's going on, has the receipts, all the documentation's in this book. You have to get it. Woke Army by Asra Nomani. We're going to see what she has to say about this insanity. It says here that under the, it's a circle of North America, Islamic Circle of North America. It's a New York-based Islamic group with documented ties to terrorism. They are granted a prominent platform under the leadership of NJEA President Sean Spiller, a prominent Democrat currently running for governor of New Jersey. ICNA was granted prime access to educators. From this position, they distributed free Qurans and other quote-unquote teachers' guides as part of their controversial Dawah campaign, which has stated goal of targeting 10 million non-Muslims for conversion. That's right, proselytizing in our schools by the means of indoctrinating our teachers and educators so that they can indoctrinate your children into a new religion, not just DEI, but we're talking about Islamists. I'm not just talking about Muslims that are practicing their religion. Okay. Back in 2001, when the Twin Towers came down, they came up with a word called Islamophobia. You can learn all about it in Woke Army, the book that I mentioned to you. But at the same time as those two gems were over at Berkeley. You also had Judith Butler. She is a self-hating Jew. Okay. She also started the LGBTQIA plus movement as a political organization to basically help unionize all these smaller groups. Okay. Usually what we used to call them when I was a kid, we used to call them fuck ups and losers. Sorry for my language, but that's what we called them. And now they're unionized, okay, with under Kimberly Crenshaw's critical race theory, Hayden Barzan's Islamist radical regime and ideology. And then for topping it all off, we had Linda Sarsour. Okay, she is a political activist. You might know her as the Pink Taco Lady that organized the Women's March. Okay, she is a commie, a straight up communist, and her goal is to destroy America, as is the goals of Judith Butler, Hayden Barzan, and Kimberly Crenshaw. When people say these are a bunch of Marxists, what they really mean is these are communists that have been placed and elected in some cases to very serious positions where they have a lot of power over what we're seeing in our public schools, and it's got to stop. Okay, this NJEA is totally pathetic. Giving free guides out for teachers, Islamizing the schools. We live in America, the Judeo-Christian values of the West. Okay, here's the Bible that I read right here. Okay, it's called the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. And actually, coincidentally, last week, if I'm not mistaken, we do Torah portions every week. We read a piece of the Torah, a portion of it every week. And last week, if I'm not mistaken, it was Bereshit, the first chapter in Genesis. These are the things that I live by, the governing laws. In the beginning of God's creating the heavens and the earth, when the earth was astonishingly empty, with darkness upon the surface of the deep, and the divine presence hovered upon the surface of the waters. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God said that the light was good, and God separated between the light and the darkness. God called the light day, and to the darkness he called night. And there was an evening and there was a morning. That was one day. Those are the very basics, the fundamentals, the 10 Commandments. All these things are in this book. And there's also Deuteronomy, which has a basis and a primary focus on what our rule of law would be in America. And that's mostly in Deuteronomy. And I'll start with Deuteronomy 6:7. And thou shalt teach them diligently to thy children. That is the epitaph on my grandfather's tombstone. He was a rabbi from Paterson, New Jersey, Rabbi Harry A. Bornstein. They used to call him the Pied Piper of Paterson because he used to walk to the synagogue every Saturday morning, leading a group of children to a place of safety, a place of learning, to learn these values, virtues and beliefs that we've been passed down to for countless generations before us. And our obligation as parents is to make sure that those same virtues, values, and beliefs are passed down for countless generations in the future. And that's what's going to happen as long as Eric Simkin has something to say about it. I'm here to get the word out. Okay, I'm not here to tell you what type of God to believe in, who to pray to, what's good or bad. I'm here to let you know what's going on. And what you're here to do is listen, break out your number 2 pencil, and start writing this stuff down so you can take action to protect your family. Okay, they have this Dawa theory, what they want to do. It's a prerequisite to jihad. And you're going to see in a minute a video that occurred at the actual New Jersey Education Association convention in Atlantic City last weekend. And what they were talking about and doing with these teachers, they actually had them converting to Islam at the convention. And what do you think's going to happen next? Those teachers are bringing that information back to who? To your kids. That's who. That is unacceptable. You need to show up at a school board meeting, but really what you need to do, the first thing you need to do is pull your kids. www.samsorbo.com. Okay, www.samsorbo.com. Okay, when you take a look at this, okay, she's going to show you everything you need to do. It's super simple. All right, I wish I had done it. My kids were seniors in high school by the time things got caught up in my household where I saw what was going on. When my kid came home and said, "Dad, they asked me in school today who flies an American flag at their house," and turned out that ended up to be racist. That's right. That's what they told my daughter. Unacceptable, not happening. Take a look at Sam Sorbo, okay? All you got to do is go to the website. You can book her for any events, okay? But really, you need to go to resources. Take a look at what this woman's put together. Online protection, how to filter out things from your kids and what they see on their social media. The homeschool planner, how to plan a homeschool so you can get your kids out of this craziness and back to the values, virtues, and beliefs, the three pillars of American society, the traditional American family of God, country, and family. And if you look, she even has all sorts of things about how to basically unindoctrinate your child and bring things back into your child's life that are necessary to make sure that freedom endures. And she has it all here at samsorbo.com. That's what I need you to be looking at with your family. Okay. That's what we need to do. The next thing that I want to show you is what exactly was happening at that convention. Take a look.
I want to welcome all of you to the NJA convention, which is the largest education and professional development convention in the nation.
ICNA and Why Islam are honored to be part of this year's Teachers Convention, with a prime booth offering Islamic literature and our Teacher's Guide to Understanding Islam and Muslims. By Allah's mercy, our efforts are making a real difference. Teachers and community members visit, ask questions, and leave with a deeper understanding of Islam, many returning year after year to share stories of how it's helped them support Muslim students. This year, Masha Allah, we even had 4 shahadas at the convention.
I testify there is no one worthy of worship except Allah the Creator. And I testify Muhammad is the messenger and servant of Allah.
With the growing number of Muslim students in public schools, it's essential that educators understand the values that shape these young lives. That's why we're here, to give teachers the knowledge to create an inclusive, respectful environment. Imagine the impact if we could expand this program nationwide. Together, we can empower educators to support Muslim students with understanding and respect. Join us in this journey. Support our mission to bring awareness of Islam to schools across the country. Donate today to make a difference.
And again, that is at the New Jersey Education Association convention in Atlantic City, New Jersey, just 2 weeks ago. School board meeting. Find out when the next school board meeting is. Go online and show up. Start listening. Bring a number 2 pencil and a notepad and start writing stuff down so you can follow through and follow up with what's going on in your kids' curriculum, whether it's DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, radical sex and sexuality agenda, any of those things. And then you got to look out for the Islamization of our public schools. It's happening in front of our very eyes. I'd like to play you one more video of Asra Nomani. She is the very brave woman, okay? She is a Muslim, and she is against what's going on. She believed in secular Muslim ideology, but it's been radicalized like so many of our other institutions. Let's take a look and really listen to what Asra has to say. Break out your pencil and start writing this down.
In our story, I want to hopefully tell you the journey of this creation that I've called Woke Army, that is an illustration from Egypt to Lebanon to my native country of India, and throughout the world, of this nexus of the leftists with the Islamists, this unholy alliance that we talk about today. How could 2 institutions and 2 ideologies with so many contradictions come together? So I want to show that really in my lifetime is how it happened. After the Muslim Brotherhood was created in 1924 in Egypt, as many of you know, Muslim Brotherhood legacy organizations and organizations emerged. Maulana Maududi was teaching the newly imported ideas of the Muslim Brotherhood. He moved to Pakistan with 1947 with his ideas, and in Lebanon, this organization called Hizb ut-Tahrir was created. And what is it that happened in the United States then, that then took root in Canada? These young men, mostly men, arrived, much like my father, to take root here in America, just like you did, in the belief of this system. And what we know now is that these organizations took root in a parcel of land not far from where I live today, Northern Virginia, at an address called 500 Grove Street in Herndon, Virginia, in the early 1980s. And there they created an institute of Islamic thought. Yeah, the IIIT is how it's called. And slowly they were growing and growing and growing. And they had with them this imagination, this battle plan like Dahlia was talking about, by any means necessary to take root in the United States. So what was happening in our Muslim world at the same time? This Quran was being exported. What is this Quran? It's the noble Quran. Who was it being exported by? The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I was a little girl growing up in Morgantown, West Virginia, and this Quran arrived at our mosque that my father had started. And what had they done? They had added into the first chapter, first verse, and this is why you know that I'm a Muslim reformer, because did I do my wuzu before I opened the Quran? No. Am I wearing my headscarf? No. And these are the rules that I refuse. The way that we know this first chapter and verse is guide us to the straight way, the way of those on whom you have bestowed your grace, not the way of your anger. That's all it says. Is there mention of the Yehudi in there? The Jew? No. But in this Quran, they added, in parentheses, not the way of those who've earned your anger. What does it say?
Such as the Jews.
Right. And then who else do they add?
Such as the Christians.
Such as the Christians, yeah. Yeah.
So they added this into ideology, right? They added hate into our Islam. And what was happening at the same time? This is our, quote, Bible, right?
Yeah.
And then this became the Bible. This Saudi interpretation became the Salafi, the whatever you want to call it, of hate.
Yeah.
What was happening in America concurrently? Another Bible was emerging.
Huh.
It's one that many of you may not have ever seen, but it is called Critical Race Theory. It's a compendium of the idea that our institutions are racist, that everything must be looked at through the lens of race. And I, as a, quote, woman of color, right, to borrow their terms, all of us as human beings, do we all refuse the idea of a hierarchy of human value? Do we refuse it? We refuse it.
Of course.
We believe in equality and human rights. We understand racism exists, right? But we do not replace one hierarchy of human rights with another hierarchy of human rights. And that is the problem with this ideology, and that is the problem with the ideology of the Islamists. They impose a new hierarchy of human rights.
You do not replace one hierarchy of human rights with another hierarchy. Very smartly said, if you ask me. Asna Rahmani was a newscaster for the Wall Street Journal. She's no longer a newscaster. She's independent. But she is exposing this, and she is exposing it big league. Across the country, she's somebody that you absolutely need to follow, and you also need to follow Stephen K. Bannon. He has a program called War Room. You can check it out for yourself. It's on Real America's Voice. This book goes on to lay out all of the information, connects the dots, and she has all the receipts with the organization names, what their agenda is, and how they've been funded with hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, from foreign adversaries to NGOs to all sorts of groups and organizations that have infiltrated our education systems. That's where I got the information about Kimberly Crenshaw being at Berkeley, along with Hayden Barazan, Judith Butler, and Linda Sarsour. The Muslim Brotherhood that started in 1928. This has been festering for a long time. Slowly infiltrating, slowly taking over control of our schools, slowly changing the mindsets, the values, virtues, and beliefs of our children, changing the values, virtues, and belief of our teachers. Who can you trust? Who's the trusted adults that's educating your child? It's impossible to tell. I would like to add that while that maniac, the head of the NEA, was inside that building in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on July 5th, 2024, me, Eric Simkin, a few of my friends were out there protesting that event. And here was what I had to say outside that event.
Stop the indoctrination and sexualization of children in public schools. NEA is not an elected office or official. They have no right to influence the curriculum, the policies in our public school. Parents have the sole right to direct their child's upbringing in public schools. It's a one-size-fits-all. Leave anything controversial out of the public education system, please. Parental rights, parental rights, parental rights, parental rights. Parental rights rule, and they are the rule of law in America.
You can see in the background that there's several women floating around there in pink little vests. Guess who they are? That's Planned Parenthood. What in the hell is Planned Parenthood doing at an event that has to do with teaching children? They're trying to kill babies. They're not trying to raise babies. So I got into it with them a little bit too. I'll skip that for now. But here's an interview I did with an educator, a proud educator voter. Why did he come up and want to talk to me? Because I was holding a sign that's, and I got it from Turning Point Action. Thank you very much, Charlie Kirk, for your hard work and everything you've done to get President Trump elected and going to continue to do to make sure the policies are implemented by the people that he appoints. This is a guy named Fitz. He's an educator. He didn't like the sign I had that said protect children, not pedos. And he came up to me and said, are you calling educators pedos? And I told him, only if the shoe fits, my friend. And here's how this conversation went. This is the kind of information that people believe that are educating your children. They're entitled to their belief, but you know they're talking to your children about it. Take a look. Go ahead. Tell us your thoughts.
Yeah, Trump's a rapist.
He's a rapist. Were you there? Were you witness to something? Were you witnessing something?
I trust the women that said he's a rapist.
Really? So you trust the fact that Jean Carroll said in a post interview? Oh, who? Who else?
I think there were 27 women.
27? Oh, interesting. Where are you getting your news from? Where do you get your news?
PBS.
I got you. I have a website called ericsimkin.com. You should check it out. That's me. And it has a lot of solid news sources that you can get an unbiased filtering from. I would suggest take a look at it. ericsimkin.com. It's not self-promotion. It's just a good news source.
What happened on January 6th?
Do I agree on what happened to it? What happened on January 6th? You mean
like a bunch of people stormed the Capitol?
I believe that if you peacefully assemble, you have that right. There were some bad apples in there, but there's also a lot of federal agents involved too. How's Roy Epps doing? Is Roy Epps still Ray Epps? You don't know who Ray Epps is? Right. I really think that you need to get some good information from other sources, and then you do. I am. I'm getting it from you right now, Fitz. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. All right. Are you pro sexualization and indoctrination of children in public schools? You for that?
Do that.
And
we also
I hope
do
not.
CRT. I had to look
You
up
don't do
CRT.
that? You don't know what it is?
I did not know
Do you
what
have an
it is.
anti-racism program in your curriculum? Do you have anti-racism programs in your curriculum?
We have pro-inclusion people, like
Inclusion? Okay, I got you. So, yes, he does. I asked 5 times. I said, I'm
There's
just
no
going to go.
consent. I'm right here. No consent. Phone
Okay.
shut down.
This is a single. This is a single consent state.
Fuck off.
Okay, enjoy yourself. Have a nice day, Fit. And she tells me to fuck off. How do you like that? Guess what? I told her to have a nice day. Hopefully, I was just glad that they weren't in a classroom teaching our children this at that time. Although I know they were going back. Couldn't wait to get back to all the radical sexualization and indoctrination of children in our public schools that they're learning about at the NAEA conference that they were just attending. I mean, it's really disgusting and pathetic. Okay. These people aren't elected. And listen to what he even said. We do have some inclusion people. What do you mean some inclusion people? When you're inclusive, wouldn't that be all people? Why would you be segregating out the population into people that are inclusion people? Just certain people are qualified to be inclusion people? I don't get it. Do you folks? No, you don't get it. Show up at a school board meeting. Go to samsorbo.com, samsorbo.com. And as far as getting these people put in that President Trump has appointed, That's going to come down to the Senate confirmation hearings that are coming up right around the corner. How do you get a hold of senators? Listen, here's the deal. They don't really want to hear from you if you're not a constituent from their states. But the way I look at it, there's 340 million Americans here. Okay, there's really 360 if you count the illegals that came in through the Harris administration. But let's talk about the 340 that were already here. Okay, the problem is the 340 million people are only represented by 100 people in the United States Senate. That's right. So each one of those senators is representing 1% of our country's interest. You need to start calling these senators. How do you do that? Where do you get their numbers? What do you do? Here's where you get their numbers. BillBlaster.com. BILL Blaster. BILLBLASTER.com. Go download it from the App Store if you're using an Android, or from the Apple Store if you're using an Apple. What does it have? It has the direct numbers to every senator and congressman in the country. And you need to start making phone calls and tell them who you want appointed and why. And that's what you need to do. You need to take action. It's not just knowing the information. I know plenty of information, but I'm certainly no keyboard warrior. I mean, I am a warrior on the keyboard. Don't get me wrong, but I show up. Okay. And you guys need to show up hot and heavy and take no prisoner type attitude, and do not accept this for yourselves, for your family, or for your children. Now, the other great thing that's coming up in our country, President Trump has a plan. He announced it last year when all this anti-Semitism was raging rampant on our college campuses. It's called American Academy. And speaking of American Academy, okay, about 6 weeks ago, I went and reserved the website called Simpkin Academy, because we are going to start teaching families what to do to avoid this crisis in their own families. Trump Academy is going to be an online college that every single American is entitled to go to for free. That's right. So what do you want to be when you grow up, parents? Okay, maybe you want to be a teacher and replace some of these radical Marxists that are teaching our children now. Let's take a look at what Trump is going to do for the college education system. I think it's phenomenal. I could tell you right now, as soon as this is available, I am going to pick a path, whether it's law, so I could start suing these fuckers, pardon my language again, okay? But I'm going to start suing these school districts. I already have in my local district through the state. The problem is the state wasn't going to support me on it because they couldn't have the demise of the education system in New Jersey. Let's take a look at what President Trump has to say about the new American Academy.
In recent weeks, Americans have been horrified to see students and faculty at Harvard and other once respected universities expressing support for the savages and jihadists who attacked Israel. We spend more money on higher education than any other country, and yet they're turning our students into communists and terrorists and sympathizers of many, many different dimensions. We can't let this happen. It's time to offer something dramatically different. Under the plan I'm announcing today, we will take the billions and billions of dollars that we will collect by taxing, fining, and suing excessively large private university endowments, and we will then use that money to endow a new institution called the American Academy. Its mission will be to make a truly world-class education available to every American, free of charge, and do it without adding a single dime to the federal debt. This institution will gather an entire universe of the highest quality educational content covering the full spectrum of human knowledge and skills, and make that material available to every American citizen online for free. Whether you want lectures or ancient histories or an introduction to financial accounting or training in a skilled trade, the goal will be to deliver it and get it done properly. Using study groups, mentors, industry partnerships, and the latest breakthrough in computing, this will be a truly top-tier education option for the people. It will be strictly non-political, and there will be no wokeness or jihadism allowed. None of that's going to be allowed. Most importantly, the American Academy will compete directly with the existing and very costly four-year university system by granting students degree credentials that the U.S. government and all federal contractors will henceforth recognize. The Academy will award the full and complete equivalent of a bachelor's degree. In addition, to help the 40 million Americans who have some college education but no degree, the American Academy will grant credit for past coursework at legacy institutions and give you the chance to complete your education at the American Academy for free and much more quickly than is now possible or available. This will be a revolution in higher education and will provide life-changing opportunities for tens of millions of our citizens. Enjoy it, learn from it, and thank you.
I am so looking forward to that revolution of the collegiate curriculum. I have 2 children in college, my beautiful twin daughters. One goes to Rutgers. They have the most radical ideology ingrained into their curriculum. It's really pathetic. I cannot wait for American Academy. I will be the first one on the list to go to it. I am going to hone my skills, and I'm going to use those skills to perpetuate freedom in my family so it endures for countless generations to come. Okay. And here's one more little clip on a teacher, an educator, and talks about the benefits of homeschooling.
As a former public school teacher, I feel that it is my duty to warn you against these 5 things that might happen if you start homeschooling your child. Number 1, you are going to get an insane amount of time back with your kid. So if you like your kid, please don't start homeschooling. Number 2, your mornings are no longer going to be rushed. There's going to be no more need for you to yell at your kids to get out the door so they don't miss the bus. Number 3, you're going to be able to personalize your child's education, which means that they're no longer just going to feel like a number inside of a classroom. And I personally just don't think that kind of attention is good for a child. Number 4, you're no longer going to have to worry about things like bullying or peer pressure or peer influences that you might not be fond of. So if you're worried about how on earth your child will possibly build character, I definitely wouldn't recommend homeschooling. Finally, number 5, you're going to have a lot more time to be doing the things that you love with your family, following your interests and passions, and that's just really not.
All right, so those are all horrible things that are going to happen to your family if you homeschool them, huh? Sounds pretty damn good to me. And if I could have done it at an earlier age with my children, believe me, I would have, because I had every inkling in my body told me to pull my kids when they were seniors. I chose not to. Was it a mistake? Time will tell, but my kids know what the Judeo-Christian values of the West are, what the foundations of the traditional American family are: God, family, and country. And they know those things despite the radical ideologies that they were exposed to in public schools. I'm very thankful to have been a positive force in my child's education, in their lives, and I continue to be, and I will be until the last breath of air leaves my lungs. Okay, so again, the takeaways from today's podcast: samsorbo.com. Pull your kids. Okay, there's no more time to allow your kids to be indoctrinated into this ideology. It's not going to end well for your family. It's not for millions of families already around the world, around the country. samsorbo.com. You're going to download Bill Blaster, BILL Blaster.com. Go to the website, download the app, and start making calls so that we can get these Senate confirmations done. And speaking of Senate confirmations, lastly, you're going to go buy this book. Okay, go online, go to Amazon, get the digital version or get the hard copy. Best book I've read. I have a total understanding of the Islamization of our public schools now, and I'm glad I do, because I understand what's going on. Okay, and I need you, and you need you, and your children need you to understand what's going on. But Senate confirmations are very important. You know, there's Republicans, there's Democrats that don't want to confirm some of these appointments that Donald Trump made. Matt Gaetz being one of them. Would he have been the best pick for Attorney General? Only time would have been able to tell. Okay, but some of these Democrats some of these Republicans actually that Matt Gaetz worked hard to expose are the very same ones that stopped him from being confirmed. So what I'm going to leave you with today, before I thank you, is going to be a compilation I did of Matt Gaetz videos. You don't have to watch it all, but I encourage you to. It's about 8 minutes. But what I'd like to do is thank you very much for spending some of your Sunday with me, Eric Simkin, on the Political Badass Podcast. God bless you, God bless your families, and God bless America. Take a look at what Matt Gaetz was doing for our country.
Congressman Gaetz offered to take us on a tour.
So one of the committees where people have a lot of information is the Appropriations Committee, because they can view almost any vector of government funding. And so, you know, this is Mr. Rutherford's office. He's on the Ethics Committee and the Appropriations Committee. 152 stock trades. Stocks go through the roof. And, actually bought Raytheon stock the day that Russia invaded Ukraine.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if every American could make money off of war.
Yeah, setting aside the whole shame and ethics questions. How many more on our hit list here?
There are a few more. I wish there were fewer on the hit list. I wish we could only stop at 1 or 2 offices, but as it turns out, So energy is a sector that sees a lot of congressional stock trading. Sure. And we have members who are on the Energy Subcommittee of Appropriations, like Michael Guest, chairman of the Ethics Committee, and he's traded somewhere between tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars in energy stocks. He's been buying online gaming stocks and just making a killing on them. So you would think that the people that were on the Ethics Committee would be your best allies in this fight, but indeed they're some of the most prolific traders. And not only trading, but in the case of Mr. Guest, trading in an area where he has access to energy information more so than almost any other American.
And no indication that he wants to maybe slow down, pump the brakes, recognize that there might be some appearance of impropriety here?
It seems as though the pace is only accelerating.
All right.
Help but like notice.
And so your question was whether or not
I control the time.
Your question
you guys have
was
been
whether
blowing
or not we
a lot of
embrace
calls
socialism.
lately on
The
matters
answer
of
is no.
strategy, Mr. Secretary. You guys told us that Russia couldn't lose. You told us that the Taliban couldn't immediately win. And so I guess I'm wondering, what in the $773 billion that you're requesting today is going to help you make assessments that are accurate in the face of so many blown calls?
You've seen what's in our budget. You've seen how the budget matches the strategy, and so I'll let that speak for itself.
Well, I mean, I've also seen that we're behind, Mr. Secretary. We're behind in hypersonics. We failed to deter Russia. Last year,
So what do you
sorties.
mean we're behind in hypersonics? How do you?
Okay, who's ahead in hypersonics?
How do you make that assessment?
I don't know. I make that assessment because
Is it
China
one
is
for one
fielding
to
hypersonic
develop
weapon systems,
hypersonics?
and we are still developing them. I
Are you
make that
talking about
assessment because
development
Russia actually
capability
used
or
one.
development of?
By the way, your own people brief us that we are behind and that China is winning. Are you aware of the briefings we get on hypersonics?
I am certainly aware of briefings that we provide to Congress.
But it's not just the hypersonic. It's all over the world. It's in Taiwan, where China last year flew more sorties than ever before. It's North Korea, on pace to shatter prior records, the number of missiles that they are testing. And so while everyone else in the world seems to be developing capabilities and being more strategic, we got time to embrace critical race theory at West Point, to embrace socialism at the National Defense University, to do mandatory pronoun training. Do you assess?
You know, it's again, this is the most capable, the most combat credible force in the world. It has been, and it will be so going forward.
Not if we
this
continue
budget
down this
helps
path.
us to do that.
Not if we embrace socialism.
The fact that you're embarrassed by your country. By
Oh, no. I'm embarrassed by your leadership.
I'm sorry for
I am not embarrassed for my country. I wish we were not losing to China.
It's
I
what
wish
you're
we
saying.
were. You know what? That is so disgraceful that you would sit here and conflate your failures with the failures of the uniformed service members. You guys said that Russia would overrun Ukraine in 36 days. You said that the Taliban would be kept at bay for months. You totally blew those calls. And maybe we would be better at them if the National Defense University actually worked a little more on strategy and a little less on wokeism.
Has it occurred to you that Russia has not overrun Ukraine because of what we've done and our allies have done?
But that was baked into your flawed assessment. That was baked into your flawed assessment. And so I saw that the Obama administration tried to destroy our military by starving it of resources, and it seems the Biden administration is trying to destroy our military by force-feeding it wokeism. I yield back. Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms should be the name of a chain of convenience stores in Florida, not a federal agency. We need to abolish the ATF before they abolish our Second Amendment rights. I don't ascribe to the theory that we just have to surrender sending criminal referrals because somehow Merrick Garland will never prosecute them. For many of the crimes that we are observing, the statute of limitations is 5 years. And so we could send criminal referrals to the Department of Justice. We go take the White House back, and you never know, David, it may be an Attorney General Matt Gaetz down the road or someone of my liking who will be there to actually enforce the law and provide the accountability, not just the vision, but the actual accountability. The people that are sending you those messages deserve that in a free and just and constitutional republic.
Yeah, we do. We absolutely do. And I like that. I like that. Attorney General Matt Gaetz. Are you kidding me? Man.
The world is not ready, probably. Certainly Senate confirmation wouldn't be. But, you know,
we're getting
a
there.
boy can dream.
Is it safe to say that based off of your comments, you're suggesting that these women at these abortion rallies are ugly and overweight?
Yes.
What do you say to people who think that those comments are offensive?
Be offended.
Here's Matt Gaetz versus Christopher Wray. This is one of the finest clips you'll see today. This guy understands that Christopher Wray, who hopefully will be leaving his job the minute Trump is sworn in, Matt Gaetz gets it. The FBI management has worked as a singular force to destroy liberties and freedoms in the United States, and they better get a guy in there who's willing to see it for what it is. This guy sees it. Watch this.
I'm sitting here with my father. I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father. Sounds like a shakedown, doesn't it, Director?
I'm not going to get into commenting on that.
You seem deeply uncurious about it, don't you? Almost suspiciously uncurious. Are you protecting the Bidens?
Absolutely not. The FBI does not and has no interest in
you won't answer the question about whether or not that's a shakedown, and everybody knows why you won't answer it. Because to the millions of people who will see this, they know it is. And your inability to acknowledge that is deeply revealing about you.
I think that the reason we are as involved in Ukraine as we are is because Afghanistan wound down. And if we still had Afghanistan to launder money through, there probably wouldn't be the need for this type of excessive involvement in Ukraine. But I think we can look at Afghanistan and we can look at what's going on here and say what a lot of these defense contractors are pushing toward is how to have an extended kind of low yield war. Like if there's a way to stretch this thing out, turn it into a 20, 30 year kind of thing where there's a whole lot of money moving around and unaccountable pots and a lot of weapons getting bought. And then, oh man, the stockpiles, well, we got to spend more money to reload those. I think that the reason we are as involved in Ukraine as we are is because Afghanistan wound down. And if we still had Afghanistan to launder money through, there probably wouldn't be the need for this type of excessive involvement in Ukraine.
The reason that Matt Gaetz is such an exciting pick to so many people is because he will go in and reform the Department of Justice. It desperately needs it. Look, he and I sat on the Judiciary Committee together for almost 7 years before I became Speaker of the House. And we heard the evidence. We saw the evidence of lawfare. We saw how the Department of Justice had been used for political purposes, how they targeted Catholics in some examples and parents at school boards and pro-life Americans. This is not what our system of justice was built to do, and Matt Gaetz will go in there and shake it up. And I think most of the American people understand that's an important function.
Because I'm the only Republican in Congress who deplatformed the corporate PACs before they could deplatform me. I don't take any PAC money, and I would invite my Republican colleagues to join me in that because it makes us more resilient.
The Honorable, the Speaker, House of Representatives, sir, I hereby resign as a United States Representative for Florida's 1st Congressional District, effective immediately, and I do not intend to take the oath of office for the same office in the 119th Congress to pursue the position of Attorney General in the Trump administration. Signed sincerely, Matt Gaetz, Member of Congress.